working at all?
The voting, you can vote, but you're just not going to see anything.
Okay, got it. Well, also, will, when I see the speakers, if they want to talk, will that will work? They'll show, okay. All right. So, welcome everybody to our afternoon meeting here. This will be not too long of a meeting. We just have one thing on our agenda. We're going to call the meeting to order. Our Assistant City Clerk, Claire Lopez, will do a roll call.
Let the record reflect all members are present.
Okay, if you all rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, it'll be led by Councilmember Contreras. All right, ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. To speak on an item on today's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip and give it to the city clerk staff. At a special meeting, no opportunity is provided to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Speaker slips are available on the table outside the city council chambers, and speakers will have 3 minutes to address the city council. So I'll bring us out of closed session. I'll give it to our city attorney, Walter Chung.
No reportable action was taken in closed session today.
Okay, and we just have their consent calendar. The recommendations on the following consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by submitting a request to speak card to the clerk's secretary. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following adoption of the calendar. We have 2 consent items. And do I have one that's, anybody, I have, let's see, I have items that are pulled by the public here. Item C2, it looks like. So I look for a motion on C1. Anybody?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes on that. Okay, that brings us our second item, which is the second reading of the City Council Ordinance, number 2022-21, approving a zone change from the A1 agricultural zone to R1B residential zone, small lot development to allow for 46 single-family homes on a 9.3-acre site located at 2123 North Santa Fe. So what we're voting on today is the ordinance approving the zone change. So I have speakers. Do you want to hear speakers first, everybody? Okay, so I'll call the speakers, and if you'll line up, please, the speaker and then one person waiting. So the first one is Phil Church, and it's followed by Gabriel Jacobs.
Camino Largo project. I recently resigned from the Parks Commission relative to this project. Council has included in the elements of the Camino Largo project to summarily vacate a portion of open space easement. This easement lies within a protected riparian corridor along the live stream identified by California Fish and Wildlife as being an unnamed tributary of the Guajome wetland and tributary to the lower San Luis Rey River. This aquifer is currently in contract between Fish and Wildlife and the city of Vista for very limited disturbance within 100 feet of 2 specific pin locations spanning the entire length of Camino Largo. Director Connolly signed this agreement, which is valid through 2026. This is open space, park-appropriate acreage being donated to private residential construction. The city recently bought and designed a $3.5 million 1-acre park on Paula Vista Drive. Council is right now going to vote to delete the same size space easement within a riparian corridor, which is valued at multiple times that of the Palo Vista parcel environmentally as parkland. Mitigation would be 2 to 10 times in exchange for the lost portion of Camino Largo from Conservation Land Bank. This is the tip of the iceberg with consideration of the many and consequential aspects of the project before you today. At the last hearing of this project, I spent 40 minutes listening to council debate and argue about green striping a currently scheduled road surface upgrade, a lecture on progressive and regressive financial aspects relating to unknown future costs to implementing the proposed green paint and its application. Mayor Ritter and Council Franklin voted against the green paint, Green, Contreras, and Melendez for. It turns out that the city has already adopted road improvements for the Los Angeles Townsite Granted Funded Safety-Oriented Project, which coincidentally includes extensive green striping elements throughout. Reviewed and approved by council, this is not new technology. We're already doing it. I will no longer spend time and effort trying to bring professional, forthright information before a council who would insist on going quickly in improving this project because they were forced to go quickly forward with a green lane striping item. Mayor Ritter and Council Franklin. Additionally, the gaslighting promotion repeatedly presented on behalf of the applicant by Green is embarrassing. Several conflicts exist in the inventory of actions and considerations in this package. Our own Planning Commission unanimously voted to deny this project. Today, Golden Door bought out the Newland Sierra Miriam Mountain property. This would be a wonderful time to use park funds to purchase the Camino Largo parcel and make it a park. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gabriel Jacobs, and he'll be followed by Michael Jacobs.
All right. I feel that members of the City Council have stifled public discourse, failed to remain quasi-judicial, govern intelligently, ignoring the housing, land use, and community and circulation element. I have witnessed an incoherent civil code that serves as a tool to be used against its citizenry. The people have no recourse. We have been left to the whims of politicians who have ignored the will of the people, presented emotional arguments rooted in fantasy, and made decisions with complete disregard to the reality of the situation. You are allowing development in an area that lacks the infrastructure to accommodate this project. There are reasons why the Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial. I believe Green, Franklin, and Ritter should recuse themselves. Your examination of the development was not done from a quasi-judicial mindset. Mayor, you were not quasi-judicial when we met back in August or on the night of the vote. You did not raise one concern regarding this project. I mean, at least Green pretended to have concerns, which turned into him selling the project harder than Matt Thorne. I'm curious, does the fire captain just show up to all your meetings or just when you need him to sell your performance? This development also presents opportunity for financial gain for Green and Ritter. How many people have you helped finance houses in developments that you have approved? Mayor, how many properties have you sold in developments that you have approved?
0.
John Franklin, your fellow council members find your behavior suspect, and your actions have robbed the community of a chance to speak on the issue. You claim you don't want Vista to become LA, but you are setting the precedent that zoning doesn't matter, population density does not matter, and open spaces do not matter. This is the slippery slope that opens Vista up to rampant overdevelopment. Furthermore, I believe there have been collusion between the developer and the city concerning small lots, and based on your behavior, you have lost my trust, and I think it is necessary to involve the Fair Political Practice Commission. Now, As I believed I had 2 minutes to speak, I have an extra 36 seconds, so I will freestyle. Councilman Green, do you really believe that traffic on Foothill is the same as traffic on North Santa Fe? Mayor, do you believe that me having to take a detour down to Melrose, 20 minutes out of my way at sometimes is an appropriate measure? I mean, you guys haven't even thought about this. You probably don't even know the area. And the U-turn is a terrible idea.
Thank you. Michael Jacobs, followed by Mary Cottle.
Good evening. I'm here to address 3 issues. Firstly, the issue of community safety and improved traffic flow at the intersection of Camino Largo and North Santa Fe Avenue. During peak use times, once construction, if it goes through, is completed, having a traffic light positioned on the corner of North Santa Fe and Camino Largo will facilitate vehicular movement and reduce potential accidents and fatalities. Councilman Green, you mentioned this at the last council meeting, but it was passed over. Could you bring it up again at this final discussion? It is a win-win for the city of Vista. The residents will get a safer traffic environment, and the city of Vista won't have to finance a new signal light later on due to frequent traffic mishaps. Secondly, adopt a resolution similar to Los Angeles City Council, restricting the mayor and any other city council member from being able to vote on any development project before the council if they have accepted contributions from the submitting development company or other invested persons. Finally, the arbitrarily imposed 2-minute limitation on presentations, which is nice that it's not tonight, but still, that was opposed earlier. By the arbitrarily imposed 2-minute limitation on presentations by community members is an embarrassment on the mayor, the city council, and the community speakers. This 2-minute speaking limitation shouts out the message that we don't want to hear from you. Go away.
Thank you, sir. Mary Cottle, followed by Mary Gilman.
I find it interesting that the City Council has been working on this project for years. This can only mean a few things. Us citizens have not known about this for a few years. And that when you annex this property, your intentions were to change the zoning all along. It was not to remain agricultural. While the city does not annex land just to rezone, in this case you are. I guess this is a preview for the citizens of Mar Vista. If you have been working on this for years, we the people have not known about it. I guess that means you have no regard for the people who live in this area or the public safety. You're ignoring what your own planning commission has said. We ask that you put this off for another time until you have really researched what is going on out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Gilman?
Well, I'm sorry we didn't know each other for 20 years. Good friends.
Good morning. First of all, I just wanted you to all know that at the end of the previous meeting, we did not, none of us, or at least the people that I talked to, we did not understand what went on. We heard special meeting December 6th, and we thought that all the items were coming up before you. And then only afterwards, someone clarified that that is about the zone change. So that's why we're all talking about that, because we didn't, none of us got that part. So for me, the most important issues are about the safety. And a number of people had brought that up, and I don't think it was all that clear until Karina was questioning about that U-turn, what a safety hazard that is. So to have some, and after that I went and of course did that. I go regularly to the Adobe Park, and that driveway that people are going to U-turn into is right there. So that's ridiculous to be on a main street and then cars U-turning and because it's not, obviously it's not wide enough. So I don't know how that's even a legal U-turn to make a turn and have to go into a driveway, a county property driveway, and come back out. It is going to be so confusing to the driver doing this, the other vehicles not expecting that this car is going to come around out the driveway, and any pedestrians in the area. And again, the school that's there, there's always kids walking and stuff. So that is such a hazard. And back to the zone change, which is, really today's docket. Again, it's just ridiculous that you're going to cram 5 times the current zoning, 5 times as many homes than are currently allowed, and call this a small lot development when this is anything from that. You can call it what you want, but putting crammed, dense housing on a location that is meant for 1-acre lots is just ridiculous. So there's no real point in having any zones or any plans or anything if that's the way it's going to go, and apparently that's the way it's going to go. So again, give some consideration to these things, that it's not just, well, we don't want it. It's a matter of you're going against what the general plan is, what the zoning is, and all these safety issues and the extra traffic. And so, that's really, really not a good place for this kind of development. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that's our last speaker, so Councilmember Contreras.
I want to thank the public for coming to this special meeting. I know it's been very frustrating to see your local government at work and or not at work. And I'm frustrated too. There's just a lot of issues with this development. I do want to just speak into the public record a few things, one of which, someone brought up campaign contributions. And as I stated before, I didn't even take any contributions for my reelection, and I've never taken contributions from developers, and I won't. I'm a corporate-free representative of the people of Vista. But oddly enough, there is a law that's going to go into effect January 1st, 2023, and that is SB 1439 about campaign contributions, and I want to read that into the public record. SB 1439 expands the Levine Act from 1982 to all local elected officials, including school board members and superintendents. Prohibits local elected officials from voting on contracts if they accepted, solicited, or directed a contribution of more than $250 from the party involved in the contract. This applies in a 12-month period before and after the local agency considers the contract in which the party has made a contribution of $250 or more. FPPC attorneys are recommending that any contribution received from a contractor in 2022 campaign cycle impacts votes on contracts in 2023. Restrictions also apply to soliciting or directing contributions of $250 or more to local ballot measure committees. And again, this goes into effect in just a few weeks. The reason that I bring this up is because on March 22nd, 2022, Marcia and Robert Thorne gave $1,000 to Councilmember Franklin in his mayoral run for the city. As a lot of people in the audience may know, Robert Thorne is the CEO of California West Communities, which is the applicant for this project. Chris Kim and Kayun Tae Kim also contributed $1,000 on 12/7/2022, and they are also tied to the Camino Largo project. This vote should not be happening today on December 6th. We had to request a special meeting at a different time than the canceled meeting that we had. This meeting should have happened on December 13th. I'm going to leave it up to the public to decide why this meeting was rushed. And I'm going to leave it to the public to hold those accountable for these types of actions moving forward. And hopefully, as a community, we can continue to have more conversations about what your elected officials' responsibilities are to providing public safety, to providing a holistic community, to ensuring that our traffic circulation is done in a way that we've agreed to, that all modes of transportation be accounted for and are done safely, which includes walking and biking and using public transit, which North Santa Fe has a lot of folks doing that. Guajome Park Academy is right there, and I don't live super far from this area, and I see the impacts from the Persea development. There's another development going in on the corner where the old boxing gym was. And we can't shy away from development. We know that we need to grow as a city. We have state mandates. We have to make sure people have an affordable place to live. But this project does nothing to further housing affordability. And my question is, we're considering a zone change right now from agricultural to R1B, much more dense. The value of the land is going to increase because of this zone change. And what is it that as a city that we will be receiving as a community benefit from the increase in land value? Right now, it's an ill-conceived U-turn and a lot of questions. And it is detrimental to public health in so many different ways. So I know I may not have a majority, but I'm going to make a motion that we deny the zone change from agricultural to R1B. Thank you. Those are my comments for today.
Councilmember Melendez.
I am not surprised that I'm receiving information that this project has campaign finance motivations related to it. And I know I can say for myself that I have not received campaign contributions from developers, and I am a community-based representative, and I'm looking at this project as critically and thoughtfully as I can. And when I do that, I recognize that this is not contiguous, that it is not an appropriate change to our general plan. And these documents are soon to be updated, correct? Our general plan is scheduled to be updated starting this next year. And that's important because those are the community designed pages that direct your council on what our community should look like and how it should grow going forward. And there's a lot of ways where we can't control how our community grows. The state has state laws and mandates that require us to build housing or gives people permission to build housing by right in certain areas to certain densities. And the problem is, once you pave something, you cannot take that back. That soil is changed forever. And I believe it's my responsibility to be a steward of the land and to listen to the people who live on the land. And that those should be my motivations for making a decision. And I just don't think that it is a good project. I think that you can design the houses in many different ways and they might look pretty, but it is superficial and it's not a good fit for our community. So I will second that motion. I'm sure we don't have a majority. I'm sure there will be a substitute motion or a failed vote, or we can imagine how that vote will go, right? But because we are obligated to continue a discussion at this second reading, it's just important for me to continue to speak my conscience, which is that this is not a good project. I don't think that we should be changing the zoning or our general plan for this project. Because once you pave it, you can't go back. And I'm also curious, how do we capture the increased value of the land? Changing it from an agricultural zoning to a denser residential zoning. And I believe there are ways that we as a council can create policy in the future, maybe not with this project, it's probably too late. We might not be able to capture the value that is just going into the developer's pocket at the end of the day. And maybe that's why they're able to afford the down payment assistance program. Because no one's giving away free money, but apparently our city is. We're giving away things for free. We're providing special privileges for developers instead of those that increased value coming back to the residents here. So I'm committed to working with our city staff on this question of if we have future zoning changes from agricultural to residential, how do we as a city capture the increased value of those properties to maximize public benefit? Could there be a fee attached to that zone change? Could there be some sort of requirement for the developer? So I think that that's definitely an important question. If we provide a concession as a body, if we are changing our zoning, which is a huge responsibility, then I think that we should be getting more back for the public. And I think in future discussions, we can investigate a policy that would make sure that we, as a public entity, can capture the value. So that's not just going to some private entity that has, I don't know who they are. They're not the public that I serve. I want as much value to be going to the public as possible. So I think that's all from me, but thank you for your time, and thank you. It's okay. Let's make sure we're respectful and following the rules, because that's important. It's okay. But I do want to say thank you for the people who came to speak. It takes a lot of energy to come in front of the floating heads up here and to share your piece, even when you know that it's not going to go the way that you desire. So keep at it, and we'll keep problem solving with you. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor, Mayor-elect John Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Melendez, you said, as you closed your statement just now, that let's be sure that we're respectful. I find it to be absolutely the opposite of respect to impute motives that are other than those stated by your colleagues to their actions, which is exactly what you and other members of this council have just done. In fact, many other legislative bodies have rules specifically against speaking to the implied motives of your colleagues. When you come before this council and you tell me that you're here to do the public good, I take that for granted. I believe that is what is in your heart. I do not go to the lengths of bringing the campaign statements of you and your colleague, Councilwoman Contreras, and illuminating for the public the fact that the two of you both received tens of thousands of dollars in independent expenditures on your behalf, almost entirely from a single industry here in Vista that was trying to change law. I don't bring those things up, but I am right now because you've impugned my motives, the motives of my two other colleagues. In fact, the motives of a majority of this council have been impugned, and what we have here today is a fundamental debate about the future of housing in our community. I'm going to speak to the 98,500 residents of the city of Vista that are not in the room with us today. We have a housing crisis. We need new housing for our children, and we believe that we need to make that available. My wife and I were able to acquire a home in Vista. It was one of the best things we ever did in our life. It was a small condominium, and it changed our lives financially. I believe in the ability of young families to be able to find and afford housing, to own a home of their own in our community. My colleagues, I put on the internet on my YouTube page so that everyone could see Councilwoman Melendez advocate in favor of 25-story towers in the city of Vista. So those were the words that came out of her own mouth. You can watch it on YouTube at YouTube/Deputy Mayor John Franklin. Just Google it. So the question is not about whether or not my colleagues oppose, quote, an increase in density. In fact, they advocate publicly for a massive increase in density, for giant high-rise towers to be constructed in our city that would radically alter the character and nature of our community. So I'm not going to let you assail my motives falsely and not bring up your own words and the way that you were able to finance and fund your election if you intend to impugn my motives. The reality is, I believe, and I have said publicly for years now, that it is necessary for us to accommodate. We have built almost no new single-family housing in the city of Vista. We are a city whose average median income now is 25% below the county average median income. We now have, on average, 25% fewer resources to employ teachers in our community, to pay for firefighter salaries, and for law enforcement, and for parks, and for all of the necessary things that we need to do as cities. In fact, new homeowners, new investors in our city are the lifeblood of how we pay for critical services for families that live here today. And we have an obligation, I believe, I have stated and have made my obligation to the taxpayers and the citizens of Vista very clear. I am going to work to improve the standing of those children who live in the city of Vista, to improve their educational opportunities, to make sure we have more tax dollars available to them to hire teachers. I'm going to work to make sure that we have more good housing opportunities so that we have more possibility to hire deputy sheriffs and firefighters. These are good quality housing units. And I just wonder if you will similarly stand against high density when there's a 9-story or a 16-story. They're building, we heard we can now build the 9-story building here with bonuses in Vista. They're building a 16-story and two 20-story towers in San Marcos. So when those things start coming to Vista, will you still be of the same mindset? And will you still have the same position? I'm curious to know. So if you want to endeavor to impugn your colleagues' motives and then ask them to keep it respectful, just know that there are truths that, that can and will be shared. So I support the project as I have for 2 years. And yes, I've known the applicants for nearly a decade. In fact, I knew them for almost a decade before they ever had a project pending in the 8 years that in fact, I think this might be the first time in 8 years that they've ever had a project pending. But I've known them on a personal level. They live in the city of Vista and in the surrounding community. They're members, longstanding members of our community. That's why we know and have a relationship with them. You know and have a relationship with, I'm sure, thousands of residents of the city of Vista, as do we. And these are people that have been known to us for a long time. They brought up a good project with down payment assistance for low-income families or lower-income families to try and afford to purchase these homes. It was an innovative project. I think at the time we all agreed that that was an innovative project. This project became a political football because you leveraged an opportunity right before an election to try and make political hay out of it. And, I don't think that was fair to the neighbors. I don't think it was fair to the community. I don't think it was fair to those who are seeking housing opportunities in the city of Vista. So, when you say let's keep it respectful, I mean, let's honestly be respectful and not impugn each other's motives. Because I think that's unbecoming of us as a council. So, I support the project because I support the housing. I support the opportunity for young families to be able to afford a home of their own in this city of Vista. That's the reason I support the project. I will support other low-density, low-rise housing opportunities in the city of Vista. And as I said during my campaign, I will oppose high-rise, high-density buildings, the kind that you've advocated for, because I do not believe the people of Vista want to see high-rise, high-density in our city. And the alternative to that is not to build no new housing, it's to provide some opportunities for families to own a home in our city. For that reason, I offer a substitute motion to approve the item that was approved at the last council meeting that's before us for a second reading.
Councilmember Green.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Conley, we're not debating whether or not we're doing anything else with this project. It simply is a zone change, correct?
That's correct.
And we did condition when we approved this project that they were going to work on the U-turn with staff. Has anybody reached out to staff on what they're doing on that U-turn yet?
We've had some conversations with their traffic engineer. They're still working on a design.
Okay. And we're aware of the ratings at this intersection from a traffic standpoint. We've had our traffic engineer look at all of them and ensure that we're not creating any undue public safety risk by approving this project, I would assume.
Our traffic engineer has evaluated the project. That's correct.
Okay, and that's all stuff. And then and you may not know this, I don't know if we have a sheriff's representative in here, but I hear a lot about, the traffic around the school time and, how dangerous it is over there. Have we had a number of incidents for calls for service at that intersection over the past couple of years that we're aware of? I mean, is it a high safety hazard intersection that we have documented safety issues at, per se?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, okay. All right. And there was a question asked as far as like what the value is in this project and what the city gets out of it, and what do you give into a developer and what do you get out of it. I am speaking a little differently, as I do support this project because I think it is a great project. I think it is contiguous with the city. I think it's adjacent to the Sandalwood project, which is actually twice the density of this project. And I believe that's one of the most desirable communities in the city of Vista with the highest turnover, which means to me that this is a great, project for a median home buyer. This isn't affordable housing. This is attainable housing, which does limit them to density, which is why we have to change the zoning. In the event this was an affordable housing project, if an affordable developer came in here and wanted to make it 50% affordable, what's the amount of density they would be able to put in this parcel?
With the density bonus, they'd be able to increase the density by anywhere between 20 to 50%, depending on the type of units and the number of affordable units included in the project.
Okay, and would a project like that have to come before a governing body, or is that something that would be able to be done by right with their own, jurisdiction or guidelines per se?
It would require discretionary approval unless it was 100% affordable.
Okay, so 50% requires discretionary, 100% approves nothing, or requires no oversight per se. So 100% affordable housing could come in here and increase density to, 80 units, 100 units, or, is that?
It depends on the location, but generally it's between 30 to 40 units per acre under state law.
Okay, all right. And that's always been my take as an elected official, is I want to make sure that I have my city drinking from a water hose as opposed to a fire hose. I don't want it shoved down my throat as far as high density, and I really do think that this is contiguous of this community, that it's right next to Sandalwood. We haven't had huge issues at the Sandalwood development. That is a very desirable community that people love, and we have great community members coming from there. I was worried about the U-turn. There is a U-turn in the county between York Drive and I guess it's like York and Hanalei and Santa Fe there. As you get right past the Mar Vista, you're going towards Robolini there on Santa Fe. There is a U-turn right next to a railroad track right there that kind of bulbs out by a bus stop with a big sidewalk and things. That, I believe, has been pretty historically safe. Maybe if you could check and see if there were any calls for service at that particular intersection and what type of, why was that built like that? Why was it bulbed out? What type of additional sidewalk requirements and signage and things were required, because that appears to be a very functional U-turn that a lot of people use to get into housing right over there next to the, Buena Vista Liquor, I believe, on Santa Fe over there, because there's the median that goes right through South Santa Fe there. So there are some U-turns that do work effectively on arterial roads, and that is actually pretty close to Hanalei Elementary School as well. So I'm sure a lot of that was thought about when that was actually installed. So if we could rely on that a little bit for a safety process. I have not received any donations from the Thorne family that I'm aware of, or Cal Properties, and I have no intentions on rerunning for any type of office, nor do I have any intentions of accepting any donations from anybody. I think this is a great project, and I think that we're going to have great people who are moving in here. The down payment assistance program that you're providing is an innovative program. Having a nonprofit run it and keep those down payments in perpetuity for years to come, if homeowners sell within 15 years, is a really huge thing. Another thing that the city gets out of this, when we parcel this land out into the 46 individual APNs, do we receive additional development impact fees and property taxes and money that goes to our schools and our hospitals and things like that? Does this present more funding for those type of projects within the city when we develop a lot like this?
Development impact fees are paid on a per unit basis, so yes, we would receive more development impact fees from a higher density project.
Okay, so we have an innovative down payment assistance program. We're going to do what we can to improve the intersection over there, and we receive additional funding for more schools, more hospitals, more infrastructure. That's what keeps our city going. So as far as I'm concerned, I think this is a good project. I appreciate all of the concessions that the developer has made since we started. We have cut down the amount of units in pre-talks and added different programs and, different things to make the community more aesthetically pleasing as you, drive down that area. So I am a supporter of this project, and with that, I would second the substitute motion to be voted on. Thank you, Mr. Conley, for answering my question, sir.
Okay, and I was just going to jump in. Some of the things that you said I wrote down here, because they asked a couple of questions, and one is what would our city be receiving? And our city be receiving 46 new homes for families in Vista with down payment assistance for, I think, 5 it was. So that's one thing our city would be receiving is 46 new homes for families. That's incredible, because we haven't built that many homes recently in Vista. And the other thing you're asking, well, what is the city? What are we going to get? I would tell you that you're going to capture increased value of the housing and property taxes over vacant land. Vacant land, the property tax on vacant land is very low compared to 46 homes that is going to be, property taxes are going to be coming into the city. So that's another way the city gets more money. But that isn't the important thing. The important thing is we need housing, and we really need housing for the families and the people in Vista, and I think that that's important. So now I guess we'll go back to Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll go ahead and respond to some of the comments that were made by Deputy Mayor Franklin. He is claiming that I advocated for a 25-story, 20-something story building. It's really easy to splice little pieces of a video and put it online to make it appear like it's something else. When we had a discussion before us about more sprawl development of 20-something homes, requesting concessions from the city, I made a comparison between denser housing and single-family homes. Because as I said before, once you pave it, you cannot change it. Once soil is paved, it doesn't go back to being agricultural, to being soil again. And you can splice together whatever pieces of comments that I may have made, but I never advocated for a 20-something story building. I made a comparison between how ridiculous 25 single-family homes would be in that location, as ridiculous as a 25-story building. We can grow in a way that is appropriate for our community, and I actually have advocated for reasonable growth in our city. When we had our discussion about inclusionary housing, it was made aware to us that state density allowances would affect our inclusionary housing policy. And because of that, I advocated for the lower amount of inclusionary requirements so that we as a city could have more management of what growth would look like. And just because we build single-family homes in one area doesn't mean another area isn't by right allowed to get more dense. Because in my district, where I represent, in District 3, I have some of the densest neighborhoods in Vista. I have the highest number of mobile home parks, which are very dense pieces of property and coaches pushed together. And I have a high number of apartments and townhomes and condos. So the renters and the homeowners in small, dense areas and dense legacy neighborhoods that are in my district voted for me, and I won by 56% of the vote because they knew I would continue to advocate for our values of inclusion, making sure that our families could still afford to live here and not be gentrified and priced out of their housing. And they also knew I would advocate for housing that's affordable. We make up words like attainable housing, they don't really mean anything. Attainable for who? Of course, we all want to see more affordable housing. And I'm glad that down payment assistance is included in this as a small piece that could help somebody. But when it comes to our real goals of building housing in our community, it's going to be districts like mine that are going to receive the dense housing. And I have advocated for not just reasonable growth, but making sure that we have enough amenities and enough infrastructure to accommodate the growth, something that has been lost in a lot of the zone changes that this council has approved in years past. So I will continue to advocate for the highest interests of my constituency in my district, which is to build an inclusive community where people can sustain a healthy life here in Vista. And if we're going to be growing because of these state mandates, what can we do as a city to make sure we have the maximum benefit? So I'm not afraid of my comments being misconstrued. I'm very confident in my leadership and how I represent the public. And I'm also going to take a small moment to provide some education, because there was a comment made about $10-something thousand of independent expenditures for my campaign. I am not aware of independent expenditures because as a candidate, you're not supposed to be. I do not participate with independent expenditures that may send out communication on my behalf as I was a candidate. So just as a clarification for the public, campaign contributions that a candidate receives are willingly taken by that candidate. Independent expenditures that are provided on behalf of the candidate are not communicated about with the candidate at all, or at least they're not supposed to be. So if someone did advocate for me in my campaign, which I believe I did get a good amount of support, I didn't have in communication with them. And the contributions that I took, I think the average contribution in my campaign was like $36. I have a lot of community members donating little bits here and there to my campaign. So just to clarify, independent expenditures are not something that a candidate has any information about, but campaign contributions are something that a candidate willingly receives. And this has gone beyond what the topic of the discussion is about, but I just thought it was important to address some of those comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
I just want to highlight that the line of questioning is false, because if we weren't doing a zone change, you couldn't put high density on agriculture, so on an A1 zone. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And let me see if my memory serves me correct or not right now, but I do remember seeing a figure of like $57,000 per year. Is that what we're going to be receiving in property tax from this development?
That's the estimate, correct.
Right. And average traffic circle costs what, like $250,000 to $450,000? So it would be more than 5 years of collecting property tax to even put a traffic circle anywhere else in the city, let alone here. And within those 5 years, we're going to have to rehabilitate the roads because there's going to be more people driving. So I just want to make it clear for everybody here that when we grow beyond our means geographically this way, it means that all our taxpayer money also has to get spread out geographically in order to have roads that don't have potholes, roads that are striped appropriately. So, I mean, it's just like, it's common sense, but there's actually a lot of literature scientifically, about these different things when it comes to sprawling out and how much it actually costs the city, because the amount of property tax that we receive actually doesn't cover the, it was in the packet. It's like 57,000. So anyways, so the amount of property tax that we receive, not only does a bunch of it go to our school district, right? But what is it, like 60% of it or something? I can't remember what the figure is, but I think the city only gets like 14 cents to the dollar or something.
That's correct. We receive about 14% of the 1% of property value.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's great, our schools can get more money, but, I just want to be like really realistic when we're talking about like, oh, we're going to get all this value back. We're getting 14 cents on the dollar back? So that $57,000, now you can like at 14 cents per dollar, now it's going to take us, what, like 10 years to get a traffic circle just from this property tax? What if we didn't commit to fixing our roads on a 2-year cycle or whatever it is that we do, and we just waited for the property tax from this small area to actually rehabilitate those roads? Like, people would be very upset here in the city of Vista. So we just have to be real when we're having these discussions and be factual. And if we wanted to have a special meeting where I could read all my campaign contributions, I would totally do that, because I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of people supported me, and I won by 66 votes, and then I didn't even have a competitor this time. So, maybe next time I will. Hopefully, I think it's really good to have choice in an election, but I know a few people were trying to get someone else to run against me, and happens that person actually liked me, so they weren't convinced to run against me. But anyways, I don't want to digress too much. So, keep in mind that we do have to have density. It is state mandated. Deputy Mayor Franklin even made the motion to accept the 9-story building height that the state is telling us that we have to do. I mean, we were present in that meeting. So, trying to say like, hey, you guys just want to build up. It's like, well, we have to. We have to. And when we have a real conversation with Vistans and we say, hey, if we have density and we don't sprawl out, then we get to save more green space. We've had conversations, way too many conversations, where even property that the city owns, I'm on the losing end, just like in this conversation, because the rest of my colleagues want to sell it to developers. So anyways, it's just, I know we're not going to, make any headway with this, and it's just going to continue to go the way that it has been going. And I want to say that I was supportive of this project when it came before us, and it was half the size. It continued to change. So, I don't think I was being disrespectful and just stating facts of campaign contributions. So anyways, I know that there was an independent expenditure that did support me, and it was cannabis related. And the city of Vista, the residents voted for cannabis. Some people up here, Deputy Mayor was super against cannabis, saying that it was going to be a boogeyman and all these things. And now he just wants to use all that money to buy more deputies. So it's like, I just, it gets really frustrating when we have these conversations. But anyways, thank you again for coming. Hopefully we'll be able to vote on this so I can move forward with all the rest of the responsibilities that I have for today, because we weren't supposed to have this meeting today. Thank you.
Councilmember Green.
Sorry, I just have one more question for Mr. Conley here. In addition to the $57,000 per year in property taxes that we receive forever on this property, don't we have development impact fees on a per unit basis? So like, what is the per unit development impact fee, and do we break it down to like traffic and schools and hospital? Like, what are those, just general, like per unit, what is the traffic impact or the development impact fee?
We collect development impact fees for a number of categories. Those include traffic, fire, drainage. There's like 5 that we collect per unit.
Okay.
For traffic, it's about $6,000 or $7,000 per unit times the 46 units. That's probably the biggest development impact fee that we would collect, as well as a sewer fee for each of the units, which is a connection fee. About the same amount.
All right. So in the event, I mean, when a developer comes in and develops, they do have to give us a big chunk of upfront money. We're not necessarily waiting for their property taxes to pay off to do any improvements that we need. Is that correct?
Those fees are intended to pay for future improvements. A development impact fee is correct.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I just want to make sure that wasn't just, property taxes that we get. I'm ready for the vote, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. I see no more speakers, so we'll call for the vote.
So you'll be voting on the substitute motion. So this will be the procedural vote to determine whether or not the substitute motion will take precedence over the original motion. And based on that vote,
Shows up there.
based on that, the substitute motion is now the pending motion on the floor.
Okay, so then I would call for the vote for on that motion.
Yes.
Please cast your votes. That motion passes 3-2. Okay, and with that, we have no more business, right? Yeah, so we are adjourned.